Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a great evening last night. Hotter than blazes in Wichita. We're in the upper 90s and we had humidity in the mid 60s, so it was sweltry. If you didn't, the only saving thing was it got out in the wind. It was blowing about 15 miles an hour, so as long as you were perspiring, everything worked out well. So here we are. Stock markets around the globe are up. The message out of the Ukraine and Russia continues to be mixed. Each side is working their news feeds, their propaganda mills, as hard as they can work them. The world still seems to think that a Russian proxy or surrogate made a mistake and shot down the wrong airplane, but Malaysian Airlines has to be snake bit right now. They flew over a war zone which was cut off at 29,000 feet. You could legally fly above that. Malaysian Airlines also got caught flying out of Europe to over the Syrian war zone. So I don't know if they're tempting fate or what, but whoever runs their airline operation, especially after what happened last week, ought to rethink their flight routes. So everybody's anxiously waiting to see what the EU is going to do. There's really not a heck of a lot that they can do because Russia has them over the energy barrel, but you don't know exactly what the announcement's going to be. My guess is that Russian businessmen that have operations in the Ukraine, minor Russian bits players, nobody from Gazprom will be touched by this, will be restricted in their travel and their banking activities. Don't think there'll be any more than that. So Europe saves a little bit of face, but we'll have meaningless sanctions when it's all said and done. That's supposition on my part. I don't know what it's going to be. We'll just have to wait and see. What we do have right here structurally is we have a B. And you can see that if we did a split on this day in the D period, we'd be looking at a B from D period on. Overnight we've got volume, and halfway and through the middle of the distribution you split it in half, another B, another B, and lo and behold we're dealing with a B right now. So structurally your sell is 5.5. To perhaps as high as 6.5. So I kind of split the difference, selling 6 to 10s. I don't think that the bottom can fall out of the market, but I do think this is a pre-auction week and the primary dealers like to build short positions before the auction comes on so they can buy them back during the auction. So the aggressive sell would be 3. Would like to do it a little bit higher, so I put sell 1, 6 to 10, but 3 might be it. And then 11 to 15 for sell 2. On the buy side, very, very aggressive, 1 to 29. Would really like to get it done at 29 or better, but 25 is a pretty round number, and there's a lot of money being bet on the 125 calls right now, and then 21.25. So that's what I have for the ZN. We do have news this morning. CPI is up 0.3. Core CPI is up, called up 0.2. The core CPI is going to get the scrutiny. If it's much higher than forecast, the pressure will be on the Fed to raise interest rates to combat inflation. Yeah, I didn't mention that. Rohit is right. Microsoft and IBM have been sanctioned by Russia. Intel and ADM have been also, as Russia is sending a message to one of the sectors that's actually doing good, the high-tech sector. No, not especially IBM, but Microsoft certainly is. And so, I mean, we're going tit for tat, and Russia will win that game because we export very little to Russia. There's very little that we make that Russia actually needs and is highly dependent upon. So it's pretty easy for them to sanction companies. Problem for Russia is where do they get the Intel and ADM substitutes or replacement chips, and they don't have a lot of sources for that. And you know, there's another reason that a lot of companies are rethinking their relationships with the U.S. because of the NSA and their potential for building backdoors into chips, which Russia and China do to their chips that actually get purchased by other people, and to their software, which not too many of them get purchased by other people, and that would be one of the laws of the unintended consequences of the NSA. Now, everybody thinks the NSA does all this spying under the wraps of terrorist attack prevention. But if you look at the record of the CIA, the NSA, and everybody else predicting actual terrorist events, I'm not saying it's zero, but it's pretty damn close to zero. So what the NSA and all government agencies do by this extensive data collection on their populations is they've got access to information that can be used against anybody anytime they want to whip their rear ends back into shape. And that's what we see. Okay, structurally, you know, it might be a 3. We're right there right now. I don't know. I'd like to sell 7s to 11s. And then 15s to 19s if possible. When you look at the structure right here, you're dealing with a B. When you look at the volume in the overnight session, you're dealing with a B. We've got a B right here, so I do like the short side of the market first. We got from 25 to 31. There's just no volume down here. We're at 01 right now, so we're going to make 25, 21 buy 1, maybe a little bit lower, maybe a little weakness in the knob spread, which is pretty strong. 17 to 21 for buy 2. And we'll come back and readjust those as need be. But when you look at what's gone on in our country with these bureaucracies defending themselves, why would the IRS bureaucracy break the laws and go out there and get after political groups that may want to cut back taxes and rein them a little bit and control it? Self-preservation. These bureaucracies like being unaccountable, like wielding unbelievable power where they can go in and screw up anybody's business or life anytime that they want. And never be held accountable for it. And they'll fight like hell to defend that. I've always wondered what drove political parties. Do political parties drive and create the government, or now does the government drive and create political parties to serve at their beck and call? And you can make a pretty strong case that the government agencies and bureaucracies who are never replaced, who never roll over, who have tenure, who really can't be fired unless there's photographic evidence of them doing whatever it is a fireable offense. You know, who controls or who runs the show right now? The bureaucracies that get to pick and choose a lot of their political contemporaries, or is it the electorate that gets to pick and choose them. So, and it's not a very, very clear distinction. Okay, we left the market last night on gold, wanting to sell 18s to 20s and didn't get close to it. 15 was resistance, a little bit less than that. So 13 to 15 was resistance, and the market is sold. On the buy side, we had 10 and then 5 to 7, and we find ourselves in this 5 to 7 area. So it is pointed lower. So we'll make 3 to 5 buy 1, and then 98 to 1300 buy 2. And on the sell side, we'll make it 10 to 12, sell 1. And then 15 to 17, sell 2. Back in the old days, bureaucracies would get run over every 50 to 100 years as the Goths or the Prussians or the French or whoever it happened to be overran your country. And the bureaucracies were wiped out and they'd have to come back and rebuild. The United States government hasn't been threatened since 1812. And it's pretty well grown unabated since then. And especially since the 1960s. And you have to wonder, you really at times you have to ask yourself, who is in control these days? Okay, looking at the euro actually sold last night, and so the selling started in London. And again, when we come in and we take a look at this, we're looking at nothing but B's, and you know my feelings about the short side of the market. We had hoped to sell higher, but we left yesterday's market with a 35 to 45. The market peaked at 30. We were sellers when we left last night. Our number one buy point was 135 even. Given the lack of activity, our second buy point was 75 to 85, and we're there. I think we're headed lower. And Russia has this group between the rock and the hard place. So here's your selling that starts at 25, then we spill from 35.05, and then the last rotate up is 93. So our first sell is going to be 35 plus or minus 5, and then it's going to be 15, and I'll make it 20 to 30. We're pointed lower right now, so let's open it up a little bit. Let's play for 50 to 60 to the downside for buy 1. And then 30 to 40 for buy 2. May have seen the bulk of the selling until the EU makes their announcement. Sometime today, probably noonish. I'm sure they're having fairly heated discussions. It would be really hard to be on the sitting in the Danish seat with all of their citizens that have been killed. Yeah, that's a 9/11 event. When you look at their population compared to ours and how many people got killed, it compares population-wise just right with 9/11. And the world's been relatively quiet coming to their aid and comfort in this. They're not really saying a hell of a lot. And obviously the Dutch are a small part of the EU, but I mean it's still a hell of a blow. And their people were murdered. Period. There's no reason for them to be dead. And whoever pulled the trigger or masterminded it should pay the consequences. Okay, crude oil. The political instability. I put an article up in the room. ISIS has taken over all of Syrian's oil production. and are threatening Iraq. Iraq yesterday said the United States better get with the program or they're going to go find somebody else to help them. Our administration will not send meaningful numbers of troops over there, nor should they. But you can interdict from the air. I mean, the easiest thing in the world to do for a pilot is to find targets and bomb them in the desert. I mean, yeah, the desert's hot, but the heat signatures thrown off by people will show little cool spots if they're human beings in the background of high temperatures, or if it's mechanized, motorized equipment, it'll show bright heat spots. You can't hide. And it'd be real easy to go in and interdict and really screw things up if you wanted to do it. You could do it reasonably fast and cheap from the air. And then at that point, will the Iraqi army be able to stand up and answer the call? And your guess is as good as mine on that one. Okay, we have this high volume number at 42. We're currently at 19. Last rotate up stopped at 27. So it's aggressive, but we rallied overnight. Got to be careful on the short side, but if we fail to get through 25 to 50, at first rotation it's a sell, and it's 103, 104 for sell 2. On the downside, we've got this attractor down here, 102.37, 102.22. The overnight session low is 72. We're currently at 19, so we'll make 75 to the buck. Buy 1. And then 25 to 50, buy 2. And again, I don't like the idea of going home short crude oil, just because too much can go wrong at night. But I don't have any problem getting short, from London on. And on the buy side, if you had to put a trade on and walk away from it for a week, you'd be long. Okay, looking at the E-mini, every stock market around the globe is up. And I mean, they're up pretty strong. Europe and Asia are up collectively about 3%. The E-mini is up, was up a nickel when I looked. So the issue is, are we going to be able to get through resistance at 75 to 78? And my guess is they're going to have a hard time doing that based on the news. So I have no problems being able to sell failure to take out 75 to 78. I don't think we have the news right now that can break the market out to the upside, but that in and of itself doesn't amount to much in today's market. In fact, the worse the news, the more likely this market is to rally, because people will say, the Fed can't do this, they have to continue to support the market. So we live in a world that quite often seems upside down. But this is resistance in this 75 area. It's where we are. And you got to take it out. If we take it out at that point, I don't think anybody doubts we're not going to 2,000. In fact, I really think no one doubts that we're going to 2,000 right now. And on the buy side, 60. So we got a buyer below 60, and we have had a seller above 75. So our first sell zone is going to be 75 plus or minus 1. I'm going to open up the second sell zone. If we blow through that, I think we're headed to 85. So we'll make our second sell zone 83 to 85. Like I said, I don't see any news that should break the market out to the upside, but okay, we have to pay up to get into this market. So buy 1 right now, and the assumption we're going to trade higher is in this 70, 71 area, and then I like the 65, 67. It's been a kind of a tipping point in this market. So CPI at 3%, they won't pay any attention to. They'll be looking at core at up 2 if it comes in greater than 2. Maybe the pressure is on the Fed at that time. I don't think the Fed's, as Jeff and so many other people have pointed out many times, is in a position to raise interest rates. And the reason for that is, if you look at right now, our interest costs are like $250 billion a year. The average maturity is, we got a portfolio that's aged 7 years or less. If interest rates were to go back to historical norms, with the long end trading in the 5% area, our debt service would jump to about $900 billion a year. And what would that do to budget deficits? Well, effectively add another trillion to it. And where's that money going to come from? I'm kind of the mind, or the mindset, that no matter what happens, interest rates are going to stay low for a hell of a long time, because the brain trust that started with Rubin and the Clintons has favored driving the duration of the portfolio lower to get the lowest possible interest costs. And what they should have been doing is issuing as much 30-year paper as they could during this period, but they haven't. Because that would have come at a coupon cost of 3%, which would have been about 60% of the historical. So anyway, that's the position the Fed's in, so raising interest rates to me is going to be hard to do. Focus, core CPI, perhaps existing home sales, and no one will pay any attention to Richmond Fed or CPI or FHFA. Increase in housing costs. Okay, it'll take about 15 minutes to get everything up and posted. I'm going to get busy on that right now. We'll see you